What's going on, everyone? By now, it's no secret that Christian Wood is a Laker, and we got some nice little information about Christian Wood that he is expected to be coming off the bench. But he spoke to Darvin Ham. He has the connection from Milwaukee. He kind of took a couple jabs at the Dallas Mavericks, which I thought was interesting, and basically talked about how him and Darvin Ham have a relationship. Communication is very key and important for him, which I agree, I believe, and it's something that I've even talked about with Dallas, right? Like, that was one of the things that I used as a defense for Christian Wood back, a month ago or whatever it was, where I said, it looked like Jason Kidd just didn't do a good job managing that roster. It seemed like there were a lot of promises that were said that weren't actually made, and there was no conversation about, hey, we're going to change things up here, right? Where I think Darvin Ham, he's not going to have that issue with. I think Darvin Ham, he's a very straight shooter, no nonsense, no BS, but he's also a player guy, right? He has that gift of gab. He's going to communicate it, and he's going to, be willing to let Wood buy in. I talked about this when they first signed Christian Wood, how I don't imagine that they guaranteed that he would start, but I did think that they offered him a big role. That was relayed. So basically everything that I said in regards to what I think Christian Wood and the conversation with the Lakers went, it sounds like that's exactly how it went. Hey, we're not going to guarantee you to start. You may have an opportunity to start. We'll see how things shake up. But you're probably going to be, all you have to do is just outplay Jackson Hayes, which you should be able to outplay Jackson Hayes, and the backup center role is yours. Probably plays around 20 minutes per game, right? Probably plays, 15 minutes off the bench as the primary backup, and then plays another 5 minutes or so alongside AD and alongside Jackson Hayes. Obviously, if Anthony Davis is out on any given night, or maybe even if LeBron's out on any given night, that's when you see Christian Wood starting, right? I could see that AD's out, we'll start Wood, or LeBron's out, let's see what Wood and Anthony Davis look like, right? That would be a good opportunity and a good time. But I do imagine that Darvin Ham experiments a little bit with starting units, right? Especially early on, there were already the talks and reports that the Lakers would start Jackson Hayes alongside Anthony Davis and want to see that look. I still think that that's a possibility. I still think that that happens, right? If you play Minnesota, right? Put AD on Karl Anthony Towns, put Jackson Hayes on Rudy Gobert, right? I could see that being a possibility. I could see them with this depth, with this talent, with this roster, kind of mixing and matching and seeing how things look. But beyond that, personally, this is just my personal thoughts, I think the Lakers should keep the continuity of the starting unit. Now, the same report said that the Lakers are actually thinking about starting Rui Hachimura. I don't really like that idea for the starting unit. I love Rui. I think eventually he's going to be LeBron's replacement. But my problem is at this stage in LeBron's career, it's not good for him to have to chase around perimeter guys and defend threes in this league. That's why it was really good for him last year to play the 4 spot, because usually 4s aren't running around and running off all these screens, and they're the Aaron Gordons and guys like that, the Draymond Greens of the world, where they're just basically spot up corner 3 guys, and LeBron can kind of play in that scout role and just kind of hang back and observe and pick and choose his spots defensively, right? He can kind of rest throughout the course of the game. If he's having to chase around and defend threes, he's not that guy anymore. Could he do it for a play or a stretch, right? 2 minutes left, we need to get 3 straight stops. LeBron, you need to guard PG, right? Absolutely. Or if it's a playoff game or something, we saw him do that this past season, right? So, but in an 82-game season, game in and game out, playing 30-plus minutes a game, it's too much to ask. And when you talk about Rui Hachimura, he is great defending 4s and even bigger 5s. We saw how well he defended in that regard, right? I mean, he did a number on Karl Anthony Towns. He was very solid and very good against Jokic, which was very surprising because he's just got such a good lower center of gravity. He's so sturdy, so strong, right? So I love the idea of him at the 4, but LeBron can't be a 3 anymore at this stage. Can he if he has to? Sure. But I don't think that that's best at his age, at this stage of his career. It's why he played the 4 last year, right? And it's why Anthony Davis has to play the 5, because it's what makes AD so special, and then also it allows LeBron to play the 4, and then you could go with a elite defensive stopper in Jared Vanderbilt. But also the problem is that if you take Jared Vanderbilt out of the starting unit, then you, outside of Anthony Davis, you don't have any elite defensive guy. D'Lo's not very good defensively. LeBron James, he can play defense in spots. Rui Hachimura is good against 4s, but he's not good against the shifty, twitchy 3s, right? He's good against the Aaron Gordons, but not the Mikal Bridges, right? Like, so that becomes a problem. And then Austin Reaves is a good, not great or elite defensive guy. Maybe he improves and is a little better, but he's not Jared Vanderbilt standard, right? And with D'Lo, who can shoot 42% from 3, and Reaves, who can shoot 40+% from 3, right? You got your shooting, you got your floor spacing, you got your playmaking, got everything. If Jared Vanderbilt can just knock down some corner 3s at any type of efficient clip, I think that this is the best starting unit as far as just like everyone fitting a role seamlessly, right? Now, I also think it's because of the continuity. This is a starting unit that got you to the Western Conference Finals, right? This is a starting unit that works. Like, stick with the continuity, stick with the guys that know each other, and continue to build on that. Again, you can experiment here and there, right? Like, you could have a game where you start Rui, right? Certain matchup, start Rui Hachimura. There's, certain matchups, maybe you even go big, right? Maybe you go like an Austin Reaves, LeBron, Jared Vanderbilt, Anthony Davis, and Christian Wood. And you got this like big where every position is 6'8" or higher except for Austin Reaves, who's 6'5", right? Like that could be interesting. That could be fun. I have no issues with kind of going a game-by-game basis, but you still need to have some cohesiveness and some continuity where I think you have your main starters. I think that the D'Lo, Reaves, Vando, LeBron, and AD, I think that starting 5 is the go-to starting 5, right? I think that that's starting 5 where night in and night out, for the most part, that starts. But if you're playing, again, like a Minnesota, maybe you start Jackson Hayes, or you start Christian Wood in that spot, right? Or maybe you do start Rui because he did so well against Karl Anthony Towns, right? He had some success against him. So maybe you do that. Maybe you put Rui on him, right? So I do think certain matchups, you can kind of make those adjustments accordingly. Right? Okay, well, let's go with this guy. Let's go with this guy. Let's start with this. Or if you want to do Rui in the starting unit, then I think you close with Vando. Right? Like, so if the 5 you see on screen right now, if these are the 5 that you want to start, I think you close with Vando. Right? Because, again, I think that that's the unit that gives you the best balance. Jared Vanderbilt can guard the best player on the other team, regardless of who it is, outside of like Embiid and Jokic, right? But he can go from a Steph to a Luka to a Kyrie to whomever, right? A Paul George, like whoever the guy is that night, you can have Jared Vanderbilt on that guy to close out games down the stretch. You got Austin Reaves, you got Anthony Davis, you got everything you need to have some major success in that regard. Right? So, in my opinion, I think if you want to start Rui, just to start Rui, you just gave him a big contract, right? Like, you want things to kind of, like, be perceived well for Rui. He gives you a little extra scoring to start the game, right? So you can hopefully get out to a good offensive start. We saw last year at times the Lakers struggled offensively to start, and then they would pick it up. So maybe that's the thinking. Maybe that's the idea. That's the approach of like, okay, you got Rui, LeBron, AD, Reaves, and D'Lo, who can all go get you 20, right? So all you need is one or two of them to be on any given night, and you're golden, starting the game strong, right? Like that I could see. And then I think to close out games and to finish games down the stretch, I think you go with Vando. Or maybe you go in spots with Vando. But I think you close that. Now, again, there is the argument of going with Christian Wood. And the only way I could see you starting Christian Wood, though, is if you went with a lineup, like I mentioned earlier, where you have like Austin Reaves, LeBron, Vando, Wood, and AD. And for like position's sake, right, you have like LeBron at the point guard, or you have him at the 2 guard or whatever. But in reality, you're running a positionless unit. I wouldn't even mind if this is like the closing lineup, right? Where you have Wood and AD as like the 2 bigs down low, just locking down in the interior. Christian Wood, 6'10", 7'3" wingspan. I know he has this stigma of not being a great defensive player, but he's had very good defensive years. You know, he averaged like 1.5 blocks a game last year, or 1.3 blocks per game. His per 36 is like 2 blocks per game, or 2.2 blocks per game, something like that. So, like, if he buys in and is focused and locked in, he can play defense. Again, not saying he's going to be elite by any stretch of the imagination, but you have Vando and Anthony Davis to basically hold down the defense. Austin Reaves and Christian Wood and LeBron James, you just need them to be serviceable at that point, and you'll be able to get stops. I think that this is, at some point, I wouldn't be shocked if this is the closing lineup, right? Or certain matchups, stuff like that. And again, you're running a positionless unit, right? That's what you're doing here. And another thing, too, is like, could the Lakers run Christian Wood like Utah runs Lauri Markkanen? Because Wood shoots like 38% from 3, right? And you see with the Jazz, like, they'll have Lauri Markkanen play the 3, right? Like, and Christian Wood is actually pretty good defending perimeter guys, right? Like, that might actually be a good independent video by itself, because Christian Wood actually is very good guarding the quicker, twitchier guys. And he has a hard time with like the bigger guys that can just kind of lower the shoulder and get into him. He's not very strong or physical. They can kind of just bully him. But like guards and like certain forwards and stuff like that, he's actually done a remarkable job defending and staying in front of that. So like I could even see the Lakers going that route. But like I think if you were going to start Christian Wood, you do something like this. You have Vando, Wood, and Anthony Davis as like your front court, and then LeBron and Reaves as your back court. I know LeBron doesn't want to play point guard. He doesn't have to play point guard. Reaves would be your point guard, right? Reaves wants to be the point guard. The Lakers have said that they want to give Reaves the opportunity to play the point guard and handle the ball more. This would be his chance. You could have Reaves run the point, right? LeBron is kind of the 2 on offense, but Vando's going to guard the best player on the other team anyway, right? So say you're playing whatever. Say you're playing Minnesota, right? You could have Wood on or LeBron on Karl Anthony Towns. You have AD on Rudy Gobert. You could put we'll see who the Wolves end up going with to close things, but you could put like Christian Wood, say, on Kyle Anderson. Right, Vando's going to guard Anthony Edwards, and then you have Austin Reaves and Mike Conley. There you go. Right, like, and you match up perfectly. And you can do that for pretty much every team. Because, again, Jared Vanderbilt's going to guard the best player on the other team. Right, like, so at that point, you just need everyone else to pick a player and just be serviceable defensively. I think you're good. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Do you think Christian Wood should start? Do you think he will start? You know, just because they might not start him to begin with doesn't mean that they might not at some point end up moving him into the starting unit. Is that something that you would want them to do? Well, again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. Let me know down in the comment section below.